So, got lots to talk about today. We're going to get into the coaches, the big primary change since we really left off last season with Matt Rule getting the job at Nebraska and seeing how the whole coaching carousel panned out. But one of the things that I don't think that we got a good gauge on last week when we're kind of setting who we are as fans is, and part of the journey last year wasn't just who do you like, who do you love to root for, but also a big part of that is who do you hate? Because last year, like a big part of it was I didn't want to, I didn't want any Big Ten teams on my list because I didn't want to hate Nebraska. Like I didn't want to like root against them in any way. Other Big 12 schools made the list just because I hate Texas. That was a big thing.
That's on there for me for sure.
Yeah. So now as we're kind of getting our identities, on the air, who do you guys hate?
I mean, 1A is Texas for sure. Has to be. Mac Brown in the, what was it, the 2009-2010 Big 12 championship. Broke my heart.
Yeah, there's like the still with him going 1 second, that's just burned in my brain forever.
Oh.
And it's funny to me going into this last season, the Big 12, they're worried about all the retributions. I think it'd be so funny if they had a magical second put back on the clock if they make it to the Big 12 championship game. They probably won't. They don't let teams with 7 wins into the conference championship games unless you're in the Big 10. But it is what it is. I think that would be fun.
I love you. You're taking shots at him already.
Jeez.
I mean, it's every year. Every year at this point. Like, the best is when I see them in Nebraska side by side since that infamous game. They have the same amount of wins. They score the same amount of points. They go to the same amount of bowl games. They're the same. And yet Texas is going to be ranked top 5 to start the season. So here we are.
Have we decided or what if Quinn Ewers just isn't good?
That's not.
He is though.
Unrealistic. I do think he's pretty good. But yeah, I think he's.
If you're good at some point, it should turn into wins. No,
I'm not saying that he's like a top 10 quarterback, but he's a good quarterback in college.
Yeah, where would you put him?
I would put him just outside the top 10, probably. I would find it hard to.
Well, just looking at the Big 12 last year,
I think right at 15.
Yeah, so just in the Big 12 last year, Max Duggan was better than him. I think Spencer Sanders is better than him. Both of those guys are gone this year, so it is what it is. I think the guy from Kansas is better than him. Yeah, probably in that Dylan Gabriel class. Like you could probably put Ewers ahead of Gabriel. Both of Kansas State's quarterbacks probably on that same tier last year with Adrian Martinez and whoever came in to fill in for him. No, I'd probably put Quinn Ewers ahead of them still.
Top 15 might be dragged a little bit. Top 20, though, I think.
Yeah.
Thinking about it now, top
good.
20.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we'll really see like in the next year of beating the Sark system, but good.
And he had a chance to outduel Bryce Young last year. Short of him breaking his collarbone or whatever happened.
Oddly enough, that's the only bit of evidence that I would have that would indicate that he's a good quarterback is how well he played in that game.
I mean, outduel is even like a stretch there because the score was 21-20. Like that was their defense is showing out more than anything.
Anyways, this isn't a Texas podcast, so.
But yeah, we hate them. I hate them. Tyler, I know you got a grudge with a handful of schools in a similar area.
Yeah, just to make it easy for everybody. Just the whole state of Florida, they can just disconnect and leave. I think we'd all be better off. Kind of like what people say about California. The cesspool state of Florida, that's who I hate.
Well, let me just pitch this question to you. Do you think that there's a common shtick, and it's in all sports, but do you think college football is better when teams from Florida are good? Miami, Florida State, Florida, kind of the big three that I'm.
No, the best thing to come out of Florida sports, I guess two best things. One is Saint Tim Tebow, and two, Jabba Win eating W's. That's it. It's stealing crab legs.
Insane that
That's
he's
it.
the second Florida person that you bring up. But okay. I also think just because we're talking about teams from Florida, I didn't think so at the time, but now that we've had some time to marinate and see how the cards have fallen since then, I think I am ready to let UCF claim that championship in 2018.
I'm not.
Just because I just think it's hilarious to think of Scott Frost as a national championship winning coach, considering how poorly he panned out. I think it's funny. I don't think it's credible, I guess, but yeah, I do think it's funny to think about it like that.
Well, my whole thing with UCF is it must just be incredibly easy to win there, because if Gus Malzahn can also go there and win a bunch of games, then it must not be that hard. So I don't think and maybe that's an unpopular opinion, I don't think he's that great of a coach. I think people think he's a great coach because he got Cam Newton to go to Auburn, but like, you take away that, and what has he done?
Flamed out at Auburn, and yeah, he's got UCF in a good spot, I guess. We'll see what happens this year when they're actually playing at Power 5 schools every week, but yeah, can't fault you there. Still hasn't gone 12-0 like the Savior Frost, but
yeah, the Savior.
We'll get there.
Well, Brandon, who do you hate?
So the first, so Texas is up there. It's just a universal hate. And I put them up there because they don't affect me as a fan, really, now that Nebraska's in the Big Ten. Iowa's the school that I probably hate the most. I also lived there for a few years, so I got to experience just how they are. The big thing that always killed me was how excited they were to beat Nebraska. Didn't matter that they're, at their points in whatever history they have, and Nebraska's at the low point in theirs, but they treated that streak like it was a Super Bowl, and it drove me nuts. Because I think about like when Nebraska and Oklahoma were rivals, it's because they were both up here, and when Colorado became a rival, because Colorado got up to here. But now it feels like Nebraska had to come down to Iowa's level for a few years. I'm glad that streak's over. I don't think it's a rivalry. I also wanted to throw that out there. I didn't think it was before the streak. I didn't think that it was now that the streak's over. And now that Nebraska is going to go on their streak, I think it's going to be even less of a rivalry. But I hate them. Hate their stupid stadium. I think it's crazily overrated. And the wave is dumb. I'll say.
All right. Okay. Hold on. We just gotta. I have a few talking points, if you mind.
Yeah.
So I don't think you would hate him as much if it wasn't a rivalry. True or false?
No. Well, if it was a rivalry, I'd be like, oh man, they're the rivals. I hate them, but I don't see them as equals. Is the problem?
I see what you're saying. I do there, but I don't get that. I don't get it. Well, I also don't understand how they're not rivals. Like, it's a cross-state team. They're a rival.
Yeah, geographically, sure. And like as far as like the Big Ten goes, like if you're gonna put the label on a rival, sure. But when I think of like rivalries, like there's history there and there's long-standing this and that. I don't feel that way with Iowa. And I don't know, could it evolve into a rivalry? Probably. I don't think. To me, when Nebraska gets back on track, I think the rivalry is going to be more. Well, it's tough to say now that the divisions are going away, but I would target more like a Wisconsin over Iowa. Okay. But again, without divisions, it's tough to say. But
one other quick thing is, when you said that it's a big deal when they beat us. I mean, I dislike when people say that, because a lot of the time they're saying it about my teams. Like they beat my teams, and then if we beat them, we're happy, whatever. I don't like that, and I don't understand it, because college football wins are pretty important because there's so many damn teams, so many good teams. So getting to that 6-win season is important. So any wins, I feel, should be important. Thoughts?
True. Yeah, for sure. And And on tangibly, it is important to win as many games as possible. And even if it's Nebraska or Northwestern A&M or whoever you're playing, those wins do count. But I feel like the percentage it goes into for determining whether it's a good season is skewed with Nebraska because of how they feel about us. And I don't think that they
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I don't think that they feel the same way about beating Nebraska, despite how historically bad they've been recently, as opposed to like a Northwestern or a Minnesota or an Illinois.
Gotcha. Do you think that it makes or breaks their season for their fans? If they beat Nebraska, then their season is a good season?
Make or break is tough, but I think it's pretty close.
Gotcha.
Like last year, I think they had a fair season. I think they won like 7 or 8 games, but I think it was largely determined to be a failure because a failure in a way that wouldn't feel like a failure if they beat Nebraska. Gotcha. And I guess there are other implications to that because they would have gone to the Big Ten championship and whatever, but
got blown out probably. Yeah,
definitely.
I was just curious. Sorry.
Yeah,
continue.
Fair point. My criticism of the wave was pretty harsh. I got into
dude. That's where I had to stop. We had to let this breathe a little bit because that is
out. Yeah, I stand by my slander of the stadium.
I do hate Iowa because it just feels like because of our recent like badness that like they feel like they're better than us, but like historically they've done almost nothing. Like they are, don't get me wrong, under Ferentz they are like a solid 9-win team, 10-win team some years, but like they're never like gonna be special. Like they'll get to the Rose Bowl like once every 5 years, but or maybe even longer than that, but like they're just not ever gonna be like factor into like the national landscape of college football. Like they are what they are. They're like a decent Midwest team, but as far as other teams, I do hate Florida along with Tyler. I don't know what it is. I was not a big fan of Tebow back in the day, but
St. Tebow.
Ugh, drives me nuts. And Urban Meyer's just a very hateable guy.
He is, but I wanted him.
I want him.
For a while, I wanted him at Nebraska.
Hell no. Dude. He does not solve any problems for anybody. He'll be there for a couple years and then just dip out and be like, "Oh, I'm getting older. My mental health's bad again."
Like, but, I mean, those couple of years would be enough fuel to make up for the last 10 years and then some, for sure.
I don't know.
And we'll actually get into that when we're talking about Matt Rule here, but to kind of put a bow on my profile and my hate for Iowa, you hit it on the nail. It hit the nail on the head. Like with Nebraska's at its best and Iowa's at its best, they're not comparable programs, but yet Iowa fans would think that they are. I think I've looked into this a couple of times, but I've forgotten the specific number. I think it's in the last 20 years, Nebraska and Iowa have the same amount of solo Big Ten championships. So take that for what you will, even though Nebraska hasn't been in the Big Ten for that long. And I think that the key difference is that Nebraska is more willing to take a risk firing a 9-win coach because they want more than settling for a 9-win ceiling every year because it's convenience.
Yeah. And there is one more.
I do think it would be fun. Sorry, Brooke. I do think it would be fun because we haven't really gotten to watch really solid Iowa and really solid Nebraska play. It's always one of the teams is always kind of shitty, and the other one is pretty okay, nothing crazy. So I think it would be really fun to actually watch those two teams be good and play each other. Because I do think that there is some sort of rivalry there that people downplay because either people hate Nebraska or people hate Iowa.
That's a good point. I think if they were more on an even playing field, I think I'd be more willing to give it more weight, a rivalry game.
And there's one more team that I hate that might be like a curveball, and it might just because they're so good all the time. But man, I hate Nick Saban in Alabama with all my heart. I hate them.
I think his time is
seeing them
done.
churn out NFL talent though is just special.
It's smart now.
It's insane, and I'm not downplaying what he has done at all, because like I get it, he might be the greatest college football coach of all time, but like, is he a great coach or is he just a great recruiter?
Well, I think that's I mean, in my stupid head, right, it's 50-50. One, you know X's and O's, or one, you're a great guy that gets people in.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, say you're good at X's and O's, but you fucking have Nebraska's roster. Well, it only gets you so far. You get great people in there,
but
you have somebody else figure out the X's and O's.
But like, I think even Kirby Smart said it at some point. It's like, he's like, coaching isn't hard. It's just getting enough good players in there, to like make a difference. And I saw a stat the other day. It was like the last 20 national champions have had no less than 14 high 4-stars or like 5 stars on their roster, which is just an incredible stat where it's like, and even the few that weren't over the past 20, 30 years were like, they were all around like 12 to 14. Like they were all right there. So, I mean, and like I was looking at the Nick Saban teams, and those teams had like 20, 25 in the years they were just ripping off natties. And I'm like, maybe that's like he found something out, like if I get enough of these 5-star guys here, I'm going to win a ton of football games. So, and like how people make the joke about offensive coordinators, they have like a revolving door of those guys, is like, it's probably pretty easy to call plays when you have 4 and 5 stars that just go crazy. But
well, it's also a revolving door because those guys end up getting high profile head coaching jobs after.
Exactly.
They flame out.
And I think that's more so of like the culture he's created. I don't know if it's necessarily X's and O's, because like, the old adage, it's the Jimmies and the Joes, not the X's and the O's. But I mean, maybe that's what just being a head coach is nowadays, is like, like being a recruiter. It's not as much, being a super,
Yeah. And another point to that, right, is you hear it a lot in not only college but NFL. Like, guys want the ball, guys want to be the one to perform. You never really hear that too often, if ever, out of Alabama. Like, oh, there's like a bunch of infighting. Like, oh, I want the ball, give me the fucking ball. I'm the best player on this team. And with all the great talent that he has, you would probably expect that the younger kids coming in are going to be a little pissed. They want to play. You never really hear that. And maybe that's because I don't pay super close attention to like Alabama radio or whatever. So maybe there is more of that than I think. But I feel like it would be a bigger deal if, players transferring out and stuff. So just something to think about as well.
I mean, I know what you're saying on that, but like when you listen to like some of those guys that have stuck around Alabama, like Mac Jones, who had to wait his turn, where he was like, like if you go to Alabama, like I feel like you find out pretty fast that like you're no longer the best one there. And like if you just like wait your turn, like with the way they turn out, like NFL prospects, like Mac Jones had to wait, what was it, 3 or 4 years to get on the field, and then he still ends up being a first rounder. So I mean, just even being on that team almost like solidifies the fact that you're going to get an NFL shot and or be a drafted NFL player. So,
yeah, culture is huge, and when you look at like talents, and I think that's a huge difference between them and say like a team like Texas, who always gets these 4 or 5-star guys and are top 10 recruiting classes, but then they can't beat Kansas when it comes to game time, and culture is a huge part of that.
Yeah, I think that it just kind of ties really well into what we're going to be talking about today. Like just Matt Rule, what he's been able to do so far. Obviously, I'm not sitting here saying, oh, Matt Rule's the next Nick Saban. Hell no. It's way too early for that. But just the right steps that we're taking. And hell, maybe in a year, 2 years, it's all shit. Like nothing works out. But right now, it feels good to wear the N on my hat. And I'm excited about it.
I would just say I don't think Matt Rule would ever be the kind of coach to go on national TV and cry and piss his pants about not making the playoff when his team has 2 losses. But Matt Rule, the subject of the topic today, and like we kind of talked about last week, I've only come to love Matt Rule more since I've had time to marinate on it and kind of just seeing where he's really picking up. And another thing is just how much he loves being in Nebraska. Like going through his old press conferences when he first got hired, just how much he understands what this program means to folks like us and how excited he is to take this opportunity and really kind of rebuild this program in the same way that he was able to rebuild Baylor and Temple. But I'll be honest, he wasn't my first choice. And like since then, I've kind of come to the conclusion that it's all for the best. But there was a time where I did want Urban Meyer, as temporary as that would have been, or even Luke Fickell, if I thought that he was going to leave Cincinnati, which he evidently ended up doing. But the more that I think about it, I think that Matt Rule is the best fit for what we need. Because it's more than just being a good coach and the X's and O's and even recruiting. It's culture and reestablishing that and getting kind of the really building a process. So when you do get the high profile guys coming in, they know what the expectations are. They know not just because I'm a 5-star quarterback from Calabasas or a 5-star receiver from Calabasas that I'm just going to come in and dominate and be great right away. But I think that's exactly why Matt Rule was the perfect guy here.
I agree. I was along the same